Good evening, Australia. Welcome to the edition of 7 News. The mushroom murder trial verdict justice served. Tonight, Erin Patterson, guilty on all counts of murder, revealed how she poisoned 4 of her own family, killing 3. Fresh evidence released for the first time. The deadly beef Wellington, unbagged and photographed for the record. Security vision of Erin in the moments after her evil act. And the 000 call that started the police investigation. We reveal Erin's biggest lies that blew her case wide open. Our expert panel is here to pull apart every little detail. What made this mother murder? Our renowned psychologist with new details on Erin's inner world. Plus, happening right now, Erin behind bars. We take you inside her prison cell ahead of her first night behind bars. And the fallout, a broken family, a stunned country town, and the world watching on. Well, tonight the powerful verdict is in. The sentencing today certainly resounding, and the fallout, well, it is still happening tonight. Erin Patterson's fate is now known. She deliberately killed 3 people and tried to kill a 4th, her own extended family. Her weapon of choice, that gourmet meal of beef Wellington, served at the family dining table. In the next 30 minutes, we're going to take you right inside the courtroom, into the prison cell, and behind the scenes of how her victims' families are responding tonight. We also have new exhibits. The very evidence the jury saw and heard. We'll play you that in full. Everything you've wanted to know revealed at last. Our team of reporters is live across the state of Victoria tonight. They've been the most dedicated team of journalists inside that courtroom every day. You're going to hear from them very soon. So let's get everyone up to speed and bring you the latest reporting. In the back of this prison van and on a one-way trip to a life behind bars. Erin Trudy Patterson, convicted triple murderer. The 50-year-old mum who turned a long lunch into a lethal weapon. This afternoon, the jury finding her guilty of all 4 charges. 3 of murder and 1 of attempted murder. A damning verdict.
Charge of attempted murder first. Guilty of attempted murder of Ian Wilkinson. Now of the charge of murder against Heather Wilkinson. Guilty of the murder of Heather, now to Gail Patterson. Guilty of the murder of Gail Patterson, now to the murder of Don Patterson. Guilty.
Also released tonight, new documents, evidence from the trial, until now only seen by investigators and the jury. The vision you're watching from the day after the lunch. Erin Patterson takes a quick toilet break at a local service station. The jury heard she felt a bit sick that morning, but she was only in there for 9 seconds. A day later, here she is at the hospital, seen speaking with medical staff. The court told she signed a discharge form and walked out, raising suspicions. After she left, her doctor calls 000.
While I was attending the other patients, the nurse informed me that she had discharged herself against medical advice. Yeah, so the meal was consumed by 5 people, and 4 of those people are now hospitalised, and Erin presented this morning.
Here, footage of a doctor examining the very meal that killed 3 people. The court was told beef Wellington leftovers were retrieved from a bin at Erin's house, brought there for inspection. A doctor said the leftovers later tested positive to a toxin in death cap mushrooms. Also, this picture of her dining room table where the meal was served. And a new picture of Erin being questioned at that very table by police over a mobile phone and the different plates she owned. Witnesses said Patterson had a deliberately different plate to the guests. But she'll be back in the Supreme Court before that to be handed her punishment. Erin Patterson, who served up death on a plate, now likely to have to serve life. So let's bring in Chief Reporter Chris Reason and 7 News Melbourne Court reporter Estelle Greepink. Good evening to you both. Estelle, I'm going to go first to you. You were inside the court at 2:15 this afternoon. That very moment, the jury returned with their verdict after a very long 10 weeks. That very moment, Erin was told the news. Take us to it and what happened.
Well, Michael, I feel like you could hear a pin drop in that courtroom. Basically, there were a lot of people waiting to come into the courtroom just to hear this verdict handed down. I was sitting about a metre away from Erin Patterson because she was in the dock and I had the first seat there. I watched her every time these verdicts were handed down. Guilty, 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 guilty. And she never really reacted beyond just staring straight ahead, looking at, I presume, the judge. But there was a lot of nervous energy in that room before the verdict was handed down, and when the jury members filed through and then handed down that verdict, you really could feel something in the atmosphere. This has been such a highly anticipated verdict, as you say, a 10-week trial and 6 days of deliberation before they finally handed down their verdict.
So Estelle, in all those weeks you sat there and watched Erin there, did her character break at any time?
It didn't appear to break at any time, Michael. In fact, the only time I really saw any emotion from her was before the jury came in and handed down their verdict. That was when she was brought into the dock around 2:15. Her legal team approached her and they spoke to her for a bit. That's when she managed a small smile, and she did have a supporter, a friend who came up to her and spoke to her too, and that's when Erin Patterson leaned over the dock and she managed a bit of a smile, but she didn't say much. It really was once the verdict was handed down that her face just really did not show emotion from that point onwards. Even as we were all led out of the court as members of the public and media, she didn't show any emotion then either.
Chris, I think everyone in Australia had an opinion on which way this might go. It took many, many weeks. The jury certainly was careful, took its time. Take us through the moment Erin left the police station.
Well, to pick up where Estelle just left off, as she was led out of the room and all the journalists were told to leave, and those court watchers, the doors closed behind her, Erin Patterson was given a couple of minutes to be alone with her defence team to go through matters we're unsure of, but potentially talking about an appeal. But before that, she was then after that taken out the back door of the judge's entrance to that room, then taken down into a tunnel that runs from the court building behind me here into the police station. You can't see just off camera here. The tunnel runs underneath, and she was placed there for some 3 hours in a police cell before finally the prison van arrived to take her away. The 2 hours and 9-minute journey from here into Melbourne and the Dame Phyllis Frost Detention Centre, Victoria's largest prison for female detainees. Now she's waiting there. There is a lot of talk, Michael, that she will lodge an appeal. That will potentially be full of problems, how to get an impartial jury. This has been obviously the most watched case in Australian legal history for years. That's one problem. We're also hearing that at some stage in the next months too, there will be a hearing for determination of her sentencing, and that is sometime after August. But all of this, Michael, if the appeal goes through, we could still be talking about this case for months, perhaps years to go.
No doubt about that. All right, Chris Reason there and Estelle Grieping, thank you both for bringing us up to speed. We'll return to both of you. Now, just quickly, some breaking news in. We've got new insight. We're going to have more of the 000 call that started the police investigation to play you in full. That is coming up in just a few minutes. The team are preparing that right now. And still to come in 7 special coverage, how Erin tied herself up in knots. From cancer claims to erasing multiple mobile phones, her biggest lies, in her own words, exposed. Psychology of a killer. Our experts here, and they've listened to the trial. Now they'll walk us through the explosive moments they say revealed Erin's true colours. The victims remembered their supporters' reply to the verdict, just ahead. And Erin's prison life. We're live with new details on life inside the serial killer's cell. Stay right here. You're watching Justice Served, the mushroom murderer. Back in a minute. Welcome back. Straight to a live shot now. You're looking at the Dame Phyllis prison where Erin is spending her first night behind bars. We're going to give you a bit of an inside look soon and learn about Erin's new cellmates. There's some pretty infamous names there, and of course the macabre question many are asking, what may be her first meal behind bars. We're also getting exhibits from the court trial released tonight. These are the pieces of evidence that were presented to the jury to help them make up their mind. I want to play for you the 000 call from a concerned doctor, Dr. Christopher Webster, who became curious when Erin skipped Leongatha Hospital after presenting with symptoms.
Emergency services.
Hello, what address do you need the police?
This is Dr. Chris Webster calling from Lee and Gaffer Hospital, and I have a concern regarding a patient that presented here earlier but has left the building and is potentially exposed to a fatal toxin from mushroom poisoning, and I've tried several times to get hold of her on her mobile phone.
What's her name?
The last name is Patterson, Patterson.
First name?
Erin, Erin.
When did she present at hospital?
At 8:05.
Today? Mushroom poisoning, you said?
Yeah, so there were 5 people that ate a meal on Saturday, and 2 of them are in intensive care at Dandenong Hospital. 2 have just been transferred from Lee and Gaffer Hospital to Dandenong Hospital, and Erin presented this morning with symptoms of poisoning.
And what happened when she presented? She just got up and left?
No, there was time for the nurse to begin observations, and I was managing the other critically unwell patient, so I had a brief chat to her about where the mushrooms were obtained, and after that, while I was attending the other patients, the nurse informed me that she had discharged herself against medical advice. She was only here for 5 minutes.
Okay. And just to clarify, you said there were 4 other people who ate the same meal, is that correct?
Yeah, so the meal was consumed by 5 people, and 4 of those people are now hospitalised, and Erin presented this morning.
I've got the police notified for 84 Gibson Street, Lee and Gaffer in Victoria. Would you like them to contact you with an outcome?
Yes, I'd be happy for them to contact me at any time on the mobile number. Okay, thank you very much for your help.
Yeah, quite incredible insight. That's where it all began, thanks to that doctor's phone call. So let's unpack where it started to fall apart for Erin Patterson. Lies, a lot of contradictions, and a transcript that paints a picture certainly of deception and destruction. So let's go through some of the most explosive statements that helped seal her fate. Joining me to analyse these 5 deadly deceptions, criminal psychologist Tim Watson-Munro. Tim, thanks for joining us. Let's have a look at the list. Let's bring it up on the screen and start at the very top. There were 2 very big red flags. Now, Erin said she wasn't a forager. She didn't own a dehydrator, but detectives very quickly uncovered they were lies.
Yes, it reflects perhaps a consciousness of guilt. She said that she panicked, but there's a pattern of deception, as you've said, Michael, that permeates a lot of her statements. She clearly was foraging. There was good evidence surrounding that in terms of places that she'd visited, looking for death cap mushrooms and so on. And ultimately these lies were part of her undoing, I suspect.
And certainly the digital forensic evidence pointed to locations that went to the foraging as well. The mystery Asian grocer was discussed a lot, certainly during the trial as well, where Erin claimed she bought the mushrooms from. Never revealed where that store was, so we take that as one of the key lies as well.
Well, her memory was quite extraordinary. She couldn't remember that. But in terms of the evidence she gave from the witness box, the comment was made that she had some very clear memories about other aspects of her life. So I think there was a fair degree of confabulation, obfuscation and so on. The grocer that the mushrooms were allegedly purchased from was never located. And you would think that that's something you'd remember very clearly if you're attempting to explain your behaviour.
What about, I guess this goes, the other 2, key lies, key deceptions go to her actual character. Claims of cancer and weight loss surgery. She certainly used some of those conversations to appeal herself to the extended family members when they were coming around for the lunch or to stay in contact with them. What does that go to her psychology?
Well, it suggests to me, look, I haven't examined her, but obviously she was playing the sympathy card. She wanted to get all family members around to entrap them, as the verdict would suggest. It again speaks to somebody that's prepared really to say anything to achieve her ends.
The mobile phones was a strange one, Tim, as well, presented in forensic digital evidence. Multiple phones, multiple devices, and some skill exercised by Erin Patterson in being able to wipe them not once but twice, and I think once remotely as well.
Well, this is what people refer to when they're describing a consciousness of guilt. If you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to remove. Unless it's panic, of course. She said she was panicking. But again, it seemed to me that there was a lot of effort put into removing evidence, hiding evidence and getting rid of evidence. And it begs the question, why did you do that? Consciousness of guilt.
There was a confidence in Erin Patterson, though, Tim, wasn't there? Because it was a surprise move for her team to actually put her in the witness stand and give evidence. But there she presented quite credibly, in fact, batted a lot of information back. Everyone else was wrong. She was right. She was combative at times and very firm, quite a deliberate witness in many ways.
Well, that was a decision made by Defence Counsel. I might say a highly revered senior counsel in Melbourne, Colin Mandy. The reasons behind that are clearly a matter for counsel in discussions with junior counsel, instructing solicitor and the client. But, of course, you always roll the dice, I think, when you put an accused person in the witness box, because it gives the jury to see that person firsthand, to see how they interact with the questions and so on, rather than standing mute and saying nothing. So it was a decision was made. Who knows if it was the right decision or not?
Well, in the end, it turned out to be wrong. But, Tim, do you think Erin Patterson really thought she could get away with this?
Well, it seems that she did. What I've heard from press people today is that she was reasonably confident she'd be going home today. It was an elaborate crime, the death of 3 people, the attempted murder of a 4th person, a great tragedy for all involved, particularly the victim survivors and the families and so on. But it seems to me that she thought she would get away with it. The jury didn't believe her.
Indeed. Tim Watson-Munro, thanks for your insight on that this evening.
It's a pleasure.
Well, still ahead on 7 special coverage, Prison Life. We'll show you inside Erin's new home, very small jail cell, and the prisoner she'll call her neighbours. Court may be over, but the pain isn't for her victims' families. They've reacted tonight. Their very personal messages just ahead. We have more coming up shortly.
30.
Well, at this very minute, Erin Patterson's beginning a new life behind bars. She's now an inmate at the country's toughest women's prison, the Dame Phyllis Frost Centre. So what does that life look like? Who are the inmates she'll be surrounded by? And how will she cope as one of Australia's most notorious women, now a serial killer? We have new detail on prison routines, cell conditions and insight from our resident psychologist on what comes next for Erin Patterson. Just outside Melbourne, behind 6-metre fences at a fortress of razor wire, lies one of Australia's toughest women's prisons, the Dame Phyllis Frost Centre. Home to up to 600 inmates, the convicted, the violent, the infamous. Inside these walls, Malka Leifer, the former school principal accused of abusing girls, Judy Moran, who lived and breathed Melbourne's gangland war, and Momina Shoma, jailed after pledging allegiance to ISIS and stabbing a stranger. Life inside is rigid, stripped of freedom, meals are rationed, movement is scheduled, trust is rare. Each inmate is assigned a compact, sparsely furnished room, usually shared with another woman. There's a metal frame bunk bed bolted to the floor, a stainless steel toilet with no seat and a small desk built into the wall. Personal items are limited, a few books, hygiene products, family photo, tiny amounts of blue tack. Fluorescent lights buzz overhead and a narrow frosted window lets in little natural light. Privacy is non-existent. Even the toilet sits in full view. To visit, you must be pre-approved and booked in by the inmate. Sessions are limited. You're urged to call ahead before you drive hours, only to be turned away. Visitors, including the likes of Erin's children, will face dress codes and bag checks. Sheer tops, hoodies, watches banned. Even colours are regulated. Smartphones are banned, so is most jewellery. You may be asked to remove hairpieces or even change into a prison-issued shirt. Refuse, and the visit's over before it begins. Contact can be limited, hugs are brief if allowed. Conversations, strained, security, always present. Inside Dame Phyllis Frost, time is served slowly. Our reporter Nick McCallum is at the Dame Phyllis Frost Centre in Ravenhall, and psychologist Tanveer Ahmed joins me in the studio. Nick, first to you, what can Erin expect on her first night? She's there, likely placed in protection.
Yes, that's right, Michael. She arrived here about an hour ago. It's a 2-hour drive in the prison van from Morwell. Now, she is likely to be put back into solitary confinement because there were reports last year she was put there into solitary confinement for protection. There were threats from her fellow inmates because her victims had been elderly. So what that meant was she was in a self-contained cottage on her own. She had a kitchen, she had shower, she had toilets, all there on her own. She had the run of that cottage, but she was not allowed out. And in fact, a prison source reportedly said if she left that unit, she would have been attacked. There were also reports today that a fellow inmate complained and then accused her of tampering with her food. Now, what the claim meant was that there was an investigation. She had apparently cooked a meal for this inmate. The inmate felt sick afterwards. All we know was there was an investigation. We don't know whether any action was taken. Now, the jury was not actually told that Erin Patterson had been here since November 2023 when she was originally charged. They also weren't told that every Monday morning she would get in a prison van, drive the 2 hours, or be driven rather, the 2 hours to Morwell. Then she would appear in court, and every night she would sleep in a cell adjoining the court. Then she would be brought back here every Friday afternoon and spend the weekend here at Morwell. Here at Dame Phyllis Frost, rather, in Ravenhall, which is about 45 minutes from the centre of Melbourne. The next time she is likely to leave here will be for the pre-sentence hearing, Michael.
All right, Nick, she is certainly the most famous inmate in there this evening. Thanks for that. Tanvir, let's go to you. This is a woman very used to a very quiet private life before all of this. How does someone psychologically adapt to prison after such a public fall from grace? And I'm just wondering, on the way there tonight, I doubt there was an epiphany given the character we know about her now.
Well, the short answer is, Mike, she won't easily, but she'll have to be. I mean, she's going to be a unique criminal. Already she's been going straight to solitary. Other inmates are accusing her of things. You can never imagine her having mealtime with the others. So I think this will be a real challenge for the prison system in Victoria, how to manage a client who may be repeatedly having to go to solitary confinement, and that presents all potential risks of harm to her as well. So the dynamic's going to be really quite intense. And we alluded to it earlier in the show, Mike. This is someone really emotionally contained. The very act of poisoning is a type of covert aggression. And we saw these other features of emotional deceit and manipulation, bringing together loved ones, and it's shrouded in a caregiving role. So it really shines a light on female aggression. Now, she's going into an environment which is full of the archetypal types of female aggression. Often that's around gossip, relational. We've got all these other victims, often with histories of abuse and trauma. The typical crimes in there are illicit drugs or property theft. You've got large components of Pacific Islanders and Aboriginal groups. Now, she's effectively a white-collar criminal, and she's going into this environment, and she's one of the most infamous criminals in Australian history now. So, look, I actually think this will present a real challenge, but I think it'll also probably put a bit of a highlight. We talk so much about youth crime in the news. This will actually potentially put a real spotlight on what a female prison is. What are our aims there? How does it differ from male prison? And in the past, some prominent female criminals have also done that. So I suspect she's going to do the same.
We can only crystal ball this, Tanvir, but does she go in there fighting? I mean, her whole defence was everyone else was wrong and she was right. It's a lonely night ahead. There's still the potential of an appeal. Does she still have some fight in her, we wonder?
I think she does. I think there'll definitely be an appeal, and I think a large portion of people thought she may have got off. So I think there are grounds for appeal in her case. I'm not a lawyer, but I think she'll go in fighting.
All right, Tanvir Ahmed, thank you very much for that. Nick McCallum outside the prison as well on what is a very interesting new journey for Erin Patterson behind bars there. Thank you both. Still ahead on 7 special coverage of the Mushroom murder trial verdict. Court may be over, but The pain certainly is not for her victims' families. We'll hear from them next. Live to their small country town. Erin's sentence, it is making news all over the world. We'll bring you some of that international coverage. High drama, this trial, all eyes on Australia. Plus the final word from our team of journalists on the ground. We reveal the one twist in this case that will stay with them forever. Back in a second. We'll stand by for the movies, the mini-series and the crime specials. All eyes of the world have been on Erin Patterson. The killer mushroom trial has had the globe gobsmacked. Here's how America's CNN covered the news.
Well, we are following new developments in Australia, where the jury in the mushroom murder trial has delivered its verdict, finding Erin Patterson guilty on all counts.
Across the Atlantic in Britain, Sky News had this.
We're talking about the trial that's gripped Australia. Erin Patterson is guilty of
our breaking news this hour, and the jury in the high-profile mushroom murder trial in Australia has found Erin Patterson guilty.
Yeah, just a sample of the international coverage. There was a lot more. While Erin Patterson faces justice, the families of her victims in the town of Leongatha are left to pick up the pieces. This has been a case that shocked the community, and tonight they try to return to something close to normal. Let's bring in Cassie Zervos, who's in the neighbouring town of Corumburra. It's the hometown of the only person to survive that lethal lunch. And Cassie, good evening to you. Surprising response from Ian Wilkinson's community. Just take us through the reaction there tonight.
Yeah, Michael, it has been an incredibly emotional afternoon and evening here. This is where Ian Wilkinson is a pastor at, and we heard from local churchgoers today. They said they have been here from the very start, back in April when this marathon trial started. They told me that they had been inside every single day, listening to the evidence being put forward to the jury, holding hands and praying. But remarkably, outside the church, once that verdict was handed down, I spoke to one woman who knew all the victims very well. She told me that they, in fact, do not hate Erin Patterson and are feeling for her too, which is quite remarkable. And the church has released a statement. 7 News was there when they posted that to their local notice board. I'm going to read it to you, Michael, because it is quite significant. It reads, we all greatly miss Heather, Don and Gail, whether we were friends for a short time or for over 20 years. It's been a long journey, and we continue to lovingly support Ian and all the Wilkinson and Patterson family. As our pastor Ian said, life can be hard, but God is faithful and he is always with us. Now, outside court, the boss of the homicide squad, Dean Thomas, not only thanked his members for their tireless efforts over the past 2 years investigating this murder case, but he also wanted to pay tribute to the victims and their families involved. This grief has torn through Leongatha and Corumburra. These are tiny rural communities who everyone knows someone in town. Everyone has been speaking about this for the past 2 years. So I think taking a listen to what he has to say is quite significant, because he did show quite a bit of emotion outside court. Take a listen, Michael.
I think it's very important that we remember that we've had 3 people. 3 people have died, and we've had a person that nearly died and was seriously injured as a result, and that has led to these charges. I ask that we acknowledge those people and not forget them.
You're very well said, because that's exactly what it's all about, Cassie. Where to now? I mean, incredible Christian spirit there, carrying these communities through, but where to for those townships? You'd forgive them for wanting to pull down the shutters and asking everyone to go away for a while. They've been scrutinised for far too long now. They just want some peace and quiet, I'd imagine.
Absolutely. We saw Simon Patterson, Erin's estranged husband, leave his home. He lives just a few streets away from the local church. He had one of his children in the back seat and he drove away pretty quickly. He was on the phone to someone at the time. We saw his AirPods in. And no doubt there will be some really hard conversations being had with his children tonight, and no doubt in the days to come. Perhaps they are asking their father, will we ever see mum again? When can we speak to her? Will we ever see her outside of the prison? And that will be some really hard conversations to have with children who have not only been grieving perhaps the loss of mum behind bars, but also the loss of their grandparents and their auntie as well. We do understand that there will be a significant church service held here on Sunday, and they might even be putting on a few services news in the next coming days, just so there's a spot for people to come and gather and process the news. This has been a 2-year saga, so obviously you can see the sun has well and truly set here in Korumburra, but there will be lots of locals tonight going to bed and wondering how and what the next phase of life looks like for this rural town. Michael?
Yeah, particularly those two kids. You really feel for them, don't you, Cassie? And incredible coverage from you along the way as well. Thank you for that tonight. Before we go, I've been working with the Spotlight team on a special program that's going to air this Sunday. Here's your first look.
Inside the mind of the mushroom killer.
What drove Erin Patterson to murder?
In a Spotlight special event, those who knew her...
How did it all happen?
...finally speak out.
There was like tombstones and, rest in peace, Grandma.
Her motive.
Did she want to wipe out that whole family?
Her lies.
Crocodile tears streaming down her face.
Her planning.
Strong signs that this woman has previously engaged in criminal and murderous behaviour.
All new Spotlight, Sunday.
A lot more detail to come out in the coming days, and that'll be on Sunday night in Spotlight. But for now, though, that's our special edition. Late news from our 7 News team. Sunrise is going to be back at 5 a.m. with more coverage and all the other news. You can also find all the evidence in full and the angles on this case on 7news.com.au in extended coverage and some special interviews. For now, though, I'm Michael Usher. Good to have your company. Thanks for joining us this evening. Have a good night.